we're going to have a moment of silence for him and all our police officers. I think it's the count, if I'm not correct, is up to 150 police officers in Utah have been killed now, I think, in the line of duty. Is that correct? I think that's what it was the last I saw. So let's have a moment of silence. All right, thank you. Now we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Shelley, will you lead us in that? Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. Just really quick little couple of thoughts. The first thought is it's election day. We want everyone to get out and vote. This is our time of the year that we can vote, and then it gives us pass for the next 12 months to complain about everything everybody does. So get out, vote, and then you can say, I told you so. And so that's the best thing about that. And believe it or not, there's people that actually say that, so do that. So please do that. So here's a quick little thought. Thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. So it does not change that life of that candle by sharing it. So share the good things in life, share the things we have, and it's always a positive and a good thing to do. So
I would offer that many times that sharing extends your life, not decreases your life. Just as a thought.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to go on to presentations. Number one, we have a presentation for Sergeant Stephanie Tatton with the Sheriff's Office, but she's in training today and couldn't be here. So we're going to go to number two. Presentation of checks for grand families and bridging the gap as recipients of the 14th annual Weber County Commissioners Fall Charity Golf Classic. Weber County Commissioners, we're going to present it, but we're going to let Mr. Bob Hunter from United Way to come on up to the podium. And we would like to hear him. He's been a partner with us and this golf classic for years. And you'll all know Bob, who's the president of United Way and does such a phenomenal job. And he used to sit in this very seat that I'm sitting in a couple of days ago.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to say something about these charities. And to your staff, Shelley and her partners who work their hind ends off to get that golf tournament to be just perfect every year. And for you and your generosity for organizing it and putting it together and raising money every year, thousands of dollars that go to the charities. And you've been nice in sort of spreading it around as well. This year, the grand families, I used to live in India. I was in the Peace Corps in India for 4 years. And in their culture, nobody is put in a nursing home. And little kids that might need help or are fatherless or motherless, they're taken care of. And the families all live in the same compound. And regardless of how old or how young you are, you're taken care of by other members of the family. It's a model that I wish were practiced more here in America. I don't know of a model where it's practiced more thoroughly than it is with grand families. And who cannot really respect those people where family takes care of family, steps in, and helps with all of our brothers and sisters. And so to them, thank you for what you do. And Catholic Community Services, I don't know if there's an organization we work with more closely than Catholic Community Services. In fact, the back of my car is full of coats that have been donated, and they're going to be dropped out to Catholic Community Services this morning as their follow-up. And I think they gave out the other day about 750 new coats that were brought to them by Knights of Columbus, which is an affiliate of the Catholic Church. And turkey drives, backpack drives, all of those kinds of things, food drives that are amazingly helpful for people in our community. That's Catholic Community Services. And isn't it wonderful that people in in a community where a certain religion far outnumbers the Catholics, and yet we work together, we hold hands, and we get done what needs to be done in a very cooperative way. And I think that's an example that I hope politicians will follow when they get elected. I just want to say one last thing that's not related to either one of those charities. And that is, Commissioner, I know today is the day for a new vote, and you're not on the ballot, and so in a couple of months, we'll be missing you, and I just want you to know that along with the other two commissioners, I've enjoyed working with you, and I've especially appreciated your sense of humor and your willingness to work things out regardless of disagreement. So thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Finally, let me tell you thanks for running these dollars through United Way. Some years you've asked us to add a little bit so it comes out even. This year it was completely even, so we didn't have to add a dollar except just put the checks in an envelope for you. So
We'll fix that. Next year, we'll round it way down.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Honor.
No, we got some great charities. The Grand Families is a new charity that we haven't, and we appreciate them, and we're going to hear from them in just a second. And then, of course, Bridging the Gap with Marisha. She's our new, are you the president, executive director up here in Catholic Community Services in Northern Utah. So she was one of the first people I met when I got elected 4 years ago. And talk about somebody who gives and gives and gives to the community, her and Brett. There's not a single fundraiser I don't go to that they're not in the middle of it giving out a lot of money of their own. And I know that because I've tried to bid against them on furniture before, and I've lost every time. Luckily, they let me come and sit on that furniture occasionally at their place. But it is great what they're doing. So we're going to do both these charities. We'll have you come up. Do you want to do them separately, or can we just do them both together? How do you want to do that, Holland? The picture? Let's do them separate. Okay.
Let's hear from them. You want to hear from them?
Sure. Let's. Do we want to hear, Marisha, will you say something real quick? And then will someone from Grand Families, all three of you come up after she's done, and then.
We'll do the award after that.
Well, I just want to say thank you for all that Weber County does to support us. CCS of Northern Utah right now is helping, I just added it up yesterday, about 8,000 individuals every single month with food, which is amazing. We can't do it without the community support. And because of the proceeds of what you guys are donating to us from the golf tournament this year, we were able to permanently pick up Bonneville Elementary, which means that we're helping another 500 kids with food every single month. Last year, total with Bridging the Gap, we did about 20,000 kids over the school year, and this year we should do about 30,000. So we really appreciate everything that everyone in the community, and especially the commissioners and all of their staff, do to support us as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Be brave. You're on TV, and we've had as many as 7 viewers watching this at once. So
That is
just know there's a
wonderful.
big audience out there.
I'm Bakal. I'm with the Children's Service Society Grand Families Program. And I personally want to thank Weber County. We are new to the area. We've only been up here for just about a year. Almost 2 years. Yeah. And this is a very needed resource for families in the area. There are 17,000 kids in the state of Utah who are being raised by a relative. And unfortunately, without Grand Families, there are not many services for them. So this
you.
money is going to help us to reach out to these families in your county and serve them. So
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
I want to just mention one thing real quick, that the staff that puts this together. I got Shelley sitting here, and I see Paige. I don't see Brooke here. I see Dominica and Holland. They put this together. It says it's the commission's golf tournament, and I literally get a note that says you show up in the morning at this time. You can only say these words. You can only talk to these people.
And stay out of the way.
And stay out of the way. And don't put your 2 cents in on anything. And I do that, and they do it all. And they work day and night to put that thing together. When it gets close up there, it's frantic, and they still have their day jobs they have to do. And so the staff does a marvelous job on putting this together. I'm sure most of the folks know that deal with the commission that you deal with our staff a lot more than you deal with us. And so we appreciate them. We have an awesome staff. They do such a great job. So, all right, stay right there and we're coming down.
Thank you so much. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, here's the, you can keep that. And here's this. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate all you do for the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're up.
Oh, right here in the middle. Yes, perfect.
Thank you.
There's the real check. Enjoy this. They won't?
Could we get, do you mind one more with everybody together?
Let's get all the big checks in. You get big dollars.
1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Bob.
I hope you didn't lick that.
Well. The sneezing on it. All right. That's the good stuff. The classic each year has really increased in what we've been doing. The amount of golfers and that. The Commissioner Ebert, he does know how to bat around that ball a little bit, but Commissioner Gibson and I aren't really golfers, so we it's been a fun learning experience learning about golf. So, all right, we're going to go to consent items. Number F, request for approval of warrants 410-831, 410-997 in the amount of $1,008,209.27. Request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $81,112.38. Request for approval of minutes of meeting held on November 1st, 2016. Request for approval to ratify new business licenses. Request for approval of an amendment to a contract by and between Weber County and Linden & Linden, management relating to the development partnership of consulting services. Number 6, request for approval of a change order number 8 on a contract by and between Weber County and Wardale Brothers for the Skyline Drive project. And I'm going to ask you a question about that, Ricky, when we get there.
Okay.
Request for the Weber County Assessor's Office for approval of surplus file cabinets, and request from the Weber Morgan Health Department for approval of surplus office equipment and furniture. So that Skyline one was $8,000. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you're talking about the purchase order,
The change order number
change
8.
order?
Okay. Just wanted to see if that was there. So those are our consent items, Commissioner. Yeah, 9,000.
I would just like to add really quickly, if we look at item number 5, request for amendment to a contract by between Linden and Linden. Mr. Linden Meyer is working with us for sustainability on our poverty initiative, helping us probably provide funding, whether it's entrepreneurs, business leaders, community leaders, any type of pay for success, social impact bonding. We can't rely specifically on the state to address the areas we have with poverty. So we're looking at other methodology to help provide that funding, and he's helping us with that. We had contracted with him for 6 months to see if it's what we wanted to do, and we've been excited with some of the work that he's doing with Sorensen Institute, and so we are looking at extending that contract to the end of the year and then reviewing if we continue on, just as an update.
All right. Ricky.
Okay. Good morning. It's election day.
Are you busy?
Yes, just a little.
Do we have plenty of polling stations today?
We have 9 vote centers, and they are all very, very busy with long lines. The vote centers are primarily set up for people who didn't receive a ballot by mail or who have some kind of issue. For people who either are not registered to vote or who just want to vote in person, they're going to have to wait in line. If they want to vote by mail, it's super fast and super convenient. So we'll see more lines probably throughout the day and especially this evening, and we're adjusting as well as we can to make sure that those lines are moving as quickly as possible. But things are going well. We've received almost 10,000 ballots this morning in the mail and through drop boxes. So that puts us up at about 60% voter turnout as of this morning.
Really? Wow. So you'll probably push an all-time high voter turnout?
You know, I was thinking we would only hit about 65% for this election, but I think it's going to be higher than that.
Nice.
Okay, let's talk about finances, and then I'll probably leave. Not that I don't love these meetings, but I've got some
You got some work to do.
other stuff. We had 20 purchase orders this week for $81,000. 23% of that, or $19,000, was for the health department, and that was for vaccines and landscaping. 18% or $15,000 was for the jail for body armor. 17% or $14,000 was for our transfer station, and that was split between parts and service on equipment and fuel. 15% or $12,000 was for our concession supplies at our rec facilities. For checks, we wrote 167 checks this week for $1 million. 12% of that amount, or $122,000, were construction checks, and primarily on Pioneer Road, Monroe Boulevard, and 40th Street. So this is transportation funds that we guard those funds, and so we write the checks out, even though these are for specific cities. 7% or $67,000 was for the jail for utilities and food. 6% or $57,000 was for the conference center for utilities and food and some contract labor. And 6% or $64,000 went to the roads, and that looks like they're stocking up on asphalt, road base, and road salt. 43% or $436,000. Also construction projects, and it was primarily Skyline Drive, but it was also for 3500 West and 2550 South.
Nice. We got a lot going on. Commissioner.
I'll make a motion, we adopt the consent items as read.
I'll second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Action item G1. You can start heading up here, Charlie. Consideration decision on proposal to amend the following sections of the Weber County Land Use Code. Definition 101-1-7, General Provisions, 102-1, Natural Hazards Overlay Districts, 104-27, Supplementary and Qualifying Regulations, 108-7, and Hillside Development Review Procedures and Standards, 108-14, to clarify that the Planning Commission is not the only land use authority over projects with natural hazards, and to provide clarity, remove redundancies, and include process steps and appeal provisions for natural hazards review. Charlie.
Hello, thank you. That was a mouthful, and it's not quite as big as it sounds, but there's a lot of ordinance language that is being touched by the changes here. You guys have had the proposal in front of you. It's been about 2 months now. We had a public hearing on September 6th. To address the changes, and commissioners, you had a couple of questions about the proposed changes. First question was posed by Commissioner Gibson, and that was, is the changes or are the changes making the ordinances easier? Are we streamlining processes? And the answer to that question is yes. I give you in the memo that you have there 3 different ways that it's making the process easier. The biggest way it's making the process easier is it's taking natural hazards consideration away from the hillside development review process. Hillside development review process essentially requires an assembly of a hillside development committee to review each of these items, and it's just unnecessary, especially when we're looking at the single-family building permit stage. What it also does is it puts the private market more dead center on offering recommendations on development patterns on geologic hazards area. Pros and cons of doing that. One of the cons is sometimes the private market isn't as thorough as it can be, but we wrote into the ordinance that we want the different entities, the geologists, the civil engineers, the geotechnical engineers, to be looking at each other's work and verifying that they have built to the best industry practices, or designed to the best industry practices, as the case may be. The second question was, how many more property owners do the new maps affect? I had a really hard time answering this question in the last meeting, and the primary reason why is because the ordinance doesn't actually adopt new maps. What the ordinance does is it helps define what the map is, and the map is the best available information available for us to use and to scrutinize and to review to determine where a natural hazard exists and where it doesn't exist. That's an evolving science, especially in the Ogden Valley area. It's definitely an evolving science. Up until this last year, we had the map that you see up on the screen. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger for us all to see. We'll let that load. It's a very big map, which was a paper map. This is a TIFF file for images hosted by UGS, and it didn't get down to really good levels of accuracy. You look in the upper area where my mouse is here around the Ogden Valley, you see big polygons of color. Within those big polygons of color, there are broken down smaller polygons of different geologic unit types. You could have landslides, you can have Norwood tuff, which is a slick clay that can cause landslides. You can have alluvial fans. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of geology that can exist within these polygons. And to give you an example of what that looks like, let me get a couple of layers turned off. There has been better mapping on the far southern edge of the county, going over into Morgan County. That's the level of detail that UGS has taken some of their maps. This is a 1 to 24,000 scale map, which gets into a very fine level of detail, so they could determine what kind of geologic units exist here. And then we've got a spreadsheet that tells us which of these units are potentially hazardous. We're not saying they're hazardous, we're just saying they're potentially hazardous. We need a little bit more information about what's going on in that area, and so we ask for a site reconnaissance. Versus, let's just go right over to the other side of that line. You just got one big polygon right there that says TN. TN stands for Norwood tuff. That's the kind of the greenish color you see sometimes on the ridges of hills, the very slick clay. And when you get heavy deposits on top of that with wet seasons, there's a high potential for landslides. So on one side, TN. On the other side, you see a lot of QMS. QMS stands for mass slide or mass movement. Which you could see a lot of stuff going on this side of the county. The backside of Ogden, of Mount Ogden, has a number of unique circumstances that we want to take closer looks at, a closer look at. Excuse me. And this broad brush just doesn't do it. And so we're looking at newer information, better information coming from UGS. It's coming out as a result of the hydrogeology study that has been done to determine what our water quantity and quality looks like in the valley. So it's a culmination of a bunch of different projects. But let me just point out in this TN here, let's turn the old map on and just look at the new mapping resources. The reddish color that you see here, are areas that the UGS, the geologists at UGS, have defined as potentially hazardous areas that need just a little bit more information on. And you just click on any one of those polygons, which gives you a refined level of detail of what kind of a unit that is. That does two things. That helps the geologist know what it is they're looking at in the area and what kinds of hazards they need to address when we're looking at development review. And so the question is, how many more properties, and I think this is a question posed by Commissioner Eber, is how many more properties are being affected by the new maps? And the answer to the question is very hard to drill down to, because we don't have the digital capabilities of taking the old non-digital map and making GIS shape files like this with a low amount of money. It cost us quite a bit to do. And that's really the only way to return verifiable results, quantifiable results on how many more acreages, how many more developable lands. But I want to give you just a view of the valley floor, which seems to be easily developable areas over here in the Eden area. And we'll turn the old map on just so we could see the difference. The yellow swath that you have here, so ignoring this kind of darker shaded polygon, which is the base layer of the new map, you look at the large yellow, it's QS, and the new map doesn't even have a QS unit. QS is a parent unit. There are a lot of different units that go under the QS, which, when broken down, some of them require a little bit more study, others don't. But looking at this, at the newer map, let's turn the old map off. So with the old map, we wouldn't have known what to do with any of these properties in the old QS. With the newer map, we've got a little bit more information, and we've got a nice big polygon there, which, if you look at the list, shows that it needs a little bit more study. It doesn't mean it's a hazard area. It just means that it's a study area to determine what hazards exist. When you go and you look at, what does that say? QAP question mark. When you go into the Excel spreadsheets that tell us what those units mean, QAP question mark says that it's an old deposit, an old geology deposit that has the potential for what they call as piping. As the sediment laid down on the valley floor, the water drained and created little pipes that cut through the units, and there's a possibility of piping, essentially, that runs through subterranean piping that runs through that area. The hazard there is the potential for sinkholes. Now, that doesn't mean that there are sinkholes. That means that we don't know. There's a question mark there. So what we would do in the development process is we would ask a landowner, a subdivider, or someone asking for a building permit to go get a geologist, work through the land, and just figure out whether or not there's a hazard. If there is no hazard, it's a site reconnaissance. They go to the site. The geologist says, you know what, this shouldn't even be mapped this way. They submit that letter to the county. We take it off the map, and they get the building permit. If the geologist says, no, we need to do more studying here, then there's a hazard study that is done. Run through the process. The landowner or the developer pays for it. And then we know what the mitigation measures are, so that way we're not, in this particular area, accepting roads or improvements or land development that may be in an area that's susceptible to sinkholes or something like that. That's just an example. There's lots of different complex layers to this. But.
Well, let's just cut to the chase real quick. So from what I understand, is what we've done here is we've basically said with our new ordinance is, okay, we're going to have these new maps out, and they may say there's an issue on there. Property owner, it's up to you to go get a geologist, come in, do a report, and say it's good to build, not good to build, or whatever.
That's right. Tell us you're safe.
Tell us you're safe to build. And once that letter comes in and we turn it into the county, do you just accept that letter on its face value? Because like you said, the guy working for the private guy might say, well, we're a little close here, this, that, whatever. But then the county will accept that letter, we'll give them a permit and let them go ahead and build.
That's right. Now, we have the ability, if we have better information,
Sure.
to say, we don't know if your geologist did a really good job here. But in most cases, the geologists are following good standards of practice, and we'll take their. They've got more credentials than we do to review this.
So when I look at this map, are we going to be doing a lot more geologists, engineering write-off on building permits than we've ever done before?
Probably, but
It's going to happen pretty much anytime you go and want to put a house in the ground, there's going to be somewhere on this little map of ours that we've had made that it's going to say, oh, right here, we could have a dragon hiding under the ground in here and we need to find it first.
It's possible. Now, a good probability is that some of the geology, or most, if not all of the geology, has been done at the subdivision phase. And so we've got a number of approved lots that are out there where geology reports were done.
Right.
And we accept that as good to go, and you get
Okay.
your building permit. This is where we may not have been as forward with asking for geology at subdivision. And there are some of those lots that are still out there.
So if I have 10 acres and I want to build a house on 3 acres, I'm in the valley, it's 3 acres, and I want to build a house there, what's it going to cost me to get a geology report?
So it's hard to say because every geologist is different, and the market
Give me a
shifts.
ballpark.
But if you're going to ask for a site reconnaissance, we've seen anywhere from a few $100 to a few $1,000. In fact, I just talked to another staff member in the office, and she mentioned that there were 3 different lot owners that did the site reconnaissance recently. They went in together. It was $700 a piece. So
Okay.
for a total of, what is that, $2,100.
So we're thinking that with this ordinance, that we're going to put the onus back onto the property owner, but it's probably going to cost every building permit, everybody that builds in Weaver County, it's probably going to cost them in the neighborhood of $1,000 to put a house in the ground. To 3,000 or 4,000.
To do a site reconnaissance. If the geologist who does the site reconnaissance determines that there is a potential hazard and there needs to be a report, it can get a lot more expensive. How expensive? It depends. Are you over in the TN, the Norwood Tuff, or the QMS, the mass slide areas? There's one area where your costs are going to go up. If you're over here in the piping areas, well, it's just a matter of digging some trenches and determining whether or not piping exists.
Okay,
So
so
difference between costs.
so what brought a lot of this about was the hillside review, correct? Isn't that's where we're really at, why we're here? We kind of trying to fix a lot of things at once.
That's right.
So when they do the hillside review, right now, we do it through our committees and do what we do. But now, if I want to build on my hill and I get an engineer to write me a letter and he comes out and does a site review, whatever, give it to the county and says, yes, they can build a house here. However, they should probably be X, the foundation so deep, or whatever. They may put a couple things like that in there. And you're going to take that at face value and issue that building permit.
That's right. And we'll be looking at geotechnical evaluations, and we'll be looking at the civil evaluations to verify that they did comply with the recommendations of that geologist. So there is still a check and balance in the system. And those professionals will also self-verify that they comply. One of the issues, the reason why I bring that up, and I don't mean to belabor the point, but sometimes you get civil engineers or geotechnical engineers designing to the way that they think it needs to be designed, not speaking to the geologist's report.
Right.
And so we just want to make sure that there's some communication back and forth, and the new writing in the ordinance addresses that. But you're right on with that. I don't want to be misleading because there's still more work that we need to do. The hillside review still applies to lots that have hazardous soil types, not geologic unit types, soil types, expansive or collapsible soils. That's still applicable on hillside, and that's still work we need to do to try and refine how those committees work or get rid of them altogether if it's too hard of a burden. The other issue that hillside development does, because that ordinance still exists, it still will still be in place if this gets adopted, is if the land has more than 25% slope, it also goes through that process. I strongly recommend that we address that and try and make that easier too. What this does is it takes natural hazards and geology out of that. There's still a possibility if there's steep slopes and natural hazards that they're doing both. But what this does is just incorporates it into our normal review process, a little bit more of an extra step, but easier, rather than sending them through a full hillside development review process. If there's no hillside development review potential, like 25% slope.
So potentially, with these changes we're making, if you're building a house on a hillside with less than 25%, they should be able to expedite and get this through, because before they were waiting on the county to get our little hillside review and all our stuff in place, it could take months and months, if I'm not wrong.
You got it.
And now they can go get their private engineer, come in, make a note and say, hey, we're good to go here. So there's some plus that it can be really expedited and moving things quickly, but it's going to cost the landowner a few bucks more than he probably would have normally spent, he or she.
Almost all correct, with the exception of that last statement. The last statement, what the county did recently over the last few years is recognize that we don't have all the credentials that we need to understand geology. And so we hired a third-party review contractor. So what we were doing for about a year or two, I can't remember how long we were doing it, is the landowner would go out and have their geologist do their work. And then we had a geologist who would review their work and argue about academic
Yeah.
geology.
Right.
We determined that at the end of the day, the risk, the hazard, the assessment, if we're just relying on the private market to do their job on those private certifications, which, I mean, not private, they're certified by the state of Utah as a PG, then our risk management kicks in and we're probably safe.
Okay.
I mean, we're not doing 100% risk management.
Right.
But we're somewhere between 50 and 100 on this.
Well, I think I hope at the end of the day, my concern is sometimes government, when we think we're making things better, we make them worse.
Right.
And that's what I hope we're not doing here. I hope that if we see some issues coming up, that we can address them quickly and get some decisions made and moving forward, because it's frustrating to people. At the end of the day, they still get to build their house, but we hold them up for a year or 6 months. It's frustrating when folks want to get moving forward, and we're holding them up for things.
And that year or 6 months with this, I think, is going to be mitigated significantly less, and it's really going to be a matter of how long it takes their private geologist to go through the process.
Good. That's great. I'll see if Commissioner Ebert has some questions. I'm sorry I took the...
It's okay. I've known you for 20 years. I'm used to it.
Yeah, it's normal. Okay, go ahead and ask a question.
The new maps, I know they're more accurate. Are they more restrictive as you've overlaid them? Do they follow the same boundaries? Have we extended boundaries?
Let's have a look at that. Again, part of the difficulty of answering that question
I only ask hard questions.
is, yeah, it's a great question, is the old maps swallowed big areas. The new maps get very defined. So, for example, this pink hue, let's just turn it off here again. That pink hue is not on the old map. It's because the old map doesn't actually answer the question of how detailed is this information.
So like QA, where it says QA right here, if you go to the other map, there's nothing where it says QA right in the middle where it's white.
The
Right.
QAL. Yep,
QAL.
QAL is great.
So-
We like QAL.
So now hit your other map.
Let's go. Sorry. Still QAL.
Yeah, so but look right here, take your pointer up and to the left up here where it says, right there, you see this red area you just went over?
There.
Is that is considered a restricted area? Or
Not
is that
restricted
QAL?
study area.
So that's QAP, so in the other map, it's QAL, it doesn't even define that as an issue.
That's right.
And in this map, it says it's QAP, where it may possibly have, so it may be a little more restrictive because it's a little more accurate.
That's exactly right. But also look at this guy here. You've got a whole area up on this bench over here that isn't listed. Turn the old map on.
Okay.
The old map says that's TN. That's all potential landslide. Now, I'm just picking areas so that we can look at how the map
Right.
works. I don't know exactly what this is here, but we do know some areas are out, some
Some
areas are
areas
in.
are- Okay. The second question I have is I just want to make sure, and I think you touched on this, but we do have a process to evaluate and do verification of the certification. We're just going to take the information they're presenting and make sure their assumptions are valid. We're just not giving them a stamp. I just want to make sure that's somewhere in the process.
It is, yeah. So if we ever have a question, if we ever see questionable work product that has come in, the ordinance gives the county engineer full discretion to, number one, tell them that their scope of work before they've even done the study is not good enough, and to go back and redo the scope of work. Number two, once they've done the study, after they've given us their scope of work, the engineer can say, we don't agree with this, we've got other evidence out there, go back and address these things. So we can still do peer review. We can even hire other geologists at the applicant's expense to do that peer review. It's just not the default. The ordinance doesn't have that as the default.
Well, we issue the permit, and so I guess my question is to Mr. Dave Wilson. If we're issuing the permit, we do have a small verification process, but the certification comes from a third party. How much does that alleviate us as far as liability for issues dealing with landslides or damage to homes, or are we on the hook no matter what? Not on the hook, I shouldn't say that, but.
Not really. If we do our due diligence, we defend it. It's an ongoing issue many entities have dealt with over the years, because if you won't issue a permit, then the developer wants to sue you. If you do, and there's a soils problem, then the homeowner wants to make a claim against the county. So I think, we're doing more and more as we go along and doing the best we can, but we still got to rely on the third-party certification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question is how do you want to get sued?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make sure, and I'm sure you vetted this through Mr. Wilson's office, that hopefully we've had several layers of liability reduction here, several different eyes looking at this to make sure that it's a good place to build. My last question is specific to the cost shift. Do you see that we're shifting some of that responsibility away from us onto the individuals who are requesting the permit? And will we see a reduction because we're no longer going into the depth of the certification process? We're having a third party?
So we're not doing peer review anymore. We're not billing customers or developers for that peer review if we ever did in the first place. So we did have the potential to do so. If we do a peer review, we will still bill, and we have the right in the new proposed language to do that. But where we're not doing that, that cost shift, that's just private market. It's
Yeah,
not a
and
difference.
touch us at all.
That's to what my question was. I just don't want folks to feel like we are
Still billing
advocating
them for.
our responsibility in providing the certification, and we're just making someone else do it. We're really probably not doing it at all. This isn't being done for savings to the county as more as it is to have a better process. So,
And there are a number of different ways that we could do this. Back in the 90s, we had an on-staff geologist who happens to work at UGS right now and helped us get to where we are with maps and all that. And that's certainly a policy question and a staffing question. But
I like
without
this-
an on-staff
I
geologist,
like this way better.
yeah, this seems to be a better way to go.
Okay. I don't have any further questions, Chair.
Okay, Fatima, do we need a ordinance number or anything? Yes, it's 17.
I'll make a motion. We adopt ordinance 17, considering the following items that have already been listed in action item number 1.
I second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, it's going to be a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Number 2, Charlie, you're still up. Review and approval of a contract between Weber County Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office of the State of Utah for the reimbursement of funds spent to be spent for Weber County Resource Management Plan.
That's right. You guys got a letter from Kathleen Clark a few days ago regarding asking for reimbursement. CRMP, just to set the groundwork really briefly, County Resource Management Plan required by the state of Utah. The legislature made some amendments to the bill that was done in 2015, this last year. Requires us to have a CRMP, County Resource Management Plan. We're about $22,000 into the work at this point. We just extended the Ogden Valley contract to Logan Simpson to help cover the whole county for CRMP in our general plan. What this contract is essentially PLPCO, Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office, requires a contract in order for them to disperse funds. And so this is a contract to make sure that we get that in place. If we get it in place now, we could probably get $23,000 back from the state before the end of this fiscal year. That's crossing our fingers.
We did this through UAC, right? When we put this all together, we put it about a couple of years ago. There was some legislative changes, and then we had to comply.
Yep, UAC helped run some of that. There are other entities that helped run some of that. Yeah. Now there's $50,000 that was set aside by the Community Impact Board for Weber County to do data analysis, data mining, data collection, which WFRC held that process together, and all that's available to us. We've got a huge website with tons of information with really cool maps, which the new geology maps are not
We
part of
love
that
cool
yet.
maps.
But yeah, so that's $50,000 that the county didn't have to pay for. This is another $50,000 the county isn't going to have to pay for,
Yeah.
covered by PLIPCO.
Yeah, I remember when we started putting this stuff together, so thank you for that. It's a contract, unless you got any more commissions, Commissioner Ebert, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve contract by and between Weber County and the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office of the State of Utah for reimbursement of funds spent or to be spent for the County Resource Management Plan.
And I second it. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Thank you,
Jennifer
John.
Graham, come on up. We got 3 things on the agenda, and they're all you. Hi, Marty. Welcome. Good to have our Parks and Recs folks here. We got our Director of Operations here, Sean, and we wish Sean had more projects, and we could put a few more on him. Do you have anything else for Sean to do? He could be more than willing to do them.
Nope.
He's got time, I think.
Nope.
Just kidding. Sean does a great job. Okay, sorry. We do digress. Number 3, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County Five Shoots Production to hold the RMPRA Winter Series Rodeo at the Golden Spikes Event Center. Jennifer.
Good morning. This is a contract for the rodeo series that come in. They come in with the November, January, February, and March rodeo. This is a contract similar to what you have seen probably the last 4 or 5 years. This does offer a small sponsorship to the event as a vest sponsor. Just one of the ways that we try and help this event stay profitable at the arena so they can continue their event there. We do make full concessions on this night, so these are a very good revenue generating event, even though we do provide that. I think it's $400 sponsorship.
Awesome. Commissioner.
I'll make a motion, we approve contract by and between Weber County and the Five Shoot Production to hold the RMPRA Winter Series Rodeo at the Golden Spikes Event Center.
And I'll second it. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Number 4, request for approval of contract by and between Weber County, the brand Europa for entertainment at the 2017 Hof Winterfest.
Offer Hof.
Yes.
It can be Hoferhof. Hoferhofer.
I call it
Oh, it's Hof.
Hof.
The Hof.
Hof German Fest, actually. So, this is a band that's new to us this year. We've had some changes in the entertainment the last couple of years, and that just tends to happen after so many years. Those favorites tend to decide they're kind of done, So, but these were brought to us on a high recommendation from the Snowbird Oktoberfest. So we're excited to give them a try.
Perfect.
Excited.
Commissioner.
I'll make a motion that we approve contract by and between Weber County and the band Europa for the entertainment at the 2017 Hof Winterfest.
I second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 5, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and Jaggerswald, Muscatine, common spelling.
That's being an old cop.
We're
That's
on
just an
the,
old
on
cop.
the wrong
It's just an
page.
old
We
cop
are
con-
thinking alike. For entertainment at the 2017 Hof
Oh,
Winterfest.
you guys have known each other for a while.
Yeah.
And this group is coming from Germany to perform for us, and so they're
And what was that group's name again?
Jagerswald Muscatine.
And so we're excited to have them as well too. So this will be for our German Fest, which is in January and January 20th and 21st, and so mark
It's
that
a
on
great,
your calendars.
it's a great thing.
It is.
That's great for the community.
Commissioner.
I'll make a motion that we approve contract by and between Weber County and the Jagerswald Muscatine for entertainment at the 2017 Hof Winterfest.
I second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, done.
Thank you.
Good. I've got one announcement to make just before we wrap up. Weber County has put in their first roundabout, and it's going to be called the Bellabout. Just kidding.
have
The
to go-
roundabout.
you have to go through
It's out on Skyline Drive. It's out on Skyline Drive, and we're going to dedicate that, and we'll do a little ribbon cutting on Thursday at noon. So it's our very first roundabout, and it's really cool to keep traffic moving. And so if you're bored, drive out Skyline Drive off Harrison Boulevard, and it is the coolest bellabout there is in the county. So just saying. Okay, public comment.
We only have one left.
It's all your.
Floor is yours.
As a matter of fact, we'll give you double the time if you want. Nobody wants to comment. Going once, going twice. Number I.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming.